Here are my initial reactions to NFL Week 16. Start with Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the league. Was there ever a question? I mean, two touchdowns, 35 plus fantasy points. We're finally seeing him dominate. Addison got another touchdown. I know I mentioned him as a must start. He played great. Sam Darnold looks good. This Viking team's legit. This team is a contender. I don't care what anybody says. They find ways to win. And Seattle at home is tough to beat. Josh Allen might have really almost given up the MVP, like in this game. He looked atrocious to the point where you're like, Lamar has looked good in every game this year, pretty much. Maybe the Pittsburgh game, but I would argue that Allen's looked worse and, he's looked bad at least in 2 or 3 games. So the Lamar, stands that are like he should be the MVP. Man, Allen was minus 700 before this game. You can't do that against New England. You can't play like that against New England and expect to be the heavy favorite still of the MVP. Now, he probably is still the favorite, but he's not minus 700 anymore. It's going to be a closer race than people think. How about this? The Raiders screwed up their chance to either pick, and I'm not saying they would have had the first pick anyways, but, them or the Giants were tied with the worst record in football, and they could have gotten the first pick and had their pick of the litter with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Now they'll get whatever quarterback falls to 3 or 4, right? Because I don't know the tiebreaker rules, but now they have the same amount of wins as the Jaguars and a few other teams, the Patriots as well. They'll still get whichever quarterback of the 2 isn't picked by the Giants. But man, what a fumble for the Raiders to win this game. And now the Jaguars, higher pick, easier chance for them to get Travis Hunter. And the Dolphins kept their playoff hopes alive by beating the 49ers, who were eliminated effectively before this game because of the Commanders' win, which I will get into. Niners faithful might be mad by the way they've played this season, but treat it as a blessing. Now they're going to get a top 12 or 13 pick. Maybe. Now, I know they need a lineman. I know they need to get Bosa some help on the edge, right? Get another edge rusher or defensive lineman. But I don't want him taking a random D lineman we've never heard of again in the first round, okay? Or a random D lineman that everyone has a second round grade on and that, John Lynch decides to take in the first round. Because let's be real, John Lynch has made one good first round pick besides the Bosa pick, which fell to his lap, and it was Brandon Ayuk in his 10 years of 49ers. I'm not saying he hasn't made great picks in the later rounds. He has, obviously, but first rounders the Niners have had trouble with. Why not Ashton Jeanty? Just a thought. CMC getting older. Imagine Ashton Jeanty on the 49ers. Jayden Daniels locked up Rookie of the Year against Philly. Man, oh man, was that a special performance, especially in the second half. I know Philly, they had Kenny Pickett playing court. I don't care. All the excuses in the world. I mean, Washington's going to be in the playoffs now, and it's like, man, Jayden Daniels, culture changer. I mean, that's what matters. You can think about the raw talent. Sure, Caleb is probably more talented. Drake May has had, done more with less, I feel like, because his line's even worse, and he has even, at least Daniels has McLaurin and a few guys out there, right? B-Rob, Eckler when he was healthy. But, man, he is a culture changer. He's a trendsetter. He's a guy that can come in and, build a football team. Speaking of Kalen Williams, we know the Lions dominated them. That was going to happen. Goff looked great. Jammo looked great. Jameer Gibbs looked great. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked good as well. Okay, I have a problem with people going after Caleb Williams. I'll make a whole separate video on this, but he's not the problem. Last 5 games, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions with 100-plus passer rating in 3 games. He's one of the worst O-lines in football. I know his receivers are good, quote unquote, right? But it doesn't matter if they're going to get to the quarterback within 5 seconds. Now, should he get the ball out quicker? Is he working on that? Yes, he looked way better today. But he has over 3,100 passing yards this season, 3,100 something, right? 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He hasn't thrown a pick in over 300 pass attempts, which is the longest streak in the NFL. Caleb is not the issue. He's a stud. And how about Jonathan Taylor? I told you guys to start him, 40 fantasy points. I knew this guy would ball out after what happened last week. Problem is, a lot of fantasy managers probably lost last week because of what happened, and he does it this week. Rams keep finding ways to win. Good for them. Looks like they're going to win the division easily now. Michael Penix Jr. with the crazy pick because of Kyle Pitts. That shouldn't even be an interception in the score, but it should be an interception by Kyle Pitts. Talk about the biggest bust of all time. Up there, Kyle Pitts, like up there with Jamarcus Russell. Like, that's how bad. I mean, this guy, they were talking about Calvin Johnson. This guy's the second coming of Calvin Johnson, second coming of Christ, basically. Horrible. Cincinnati kept their playoff hopes alive. This was excellent. And I think they're going to make the playoffs over Denver. I really do. I think Denver loses out and Cincinnati wins out, and they get some help with the Colts and Dolphins. Bryce Young, that gap. I know people thought Stroud was the clear cut, and yes, of course, Stroud is still the number 1 pick in a redraft, but the gap is getting closer. Bryce Young's played excellent over the second half of the season. Stroud has looked horrible. Did I miss anything? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure to follow for my wide receiver rankings coming out tomorrow.